After losing 7 straight games to end the 2022 NFL season, the Tennessee Titans have the 11th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. Will they pick a wide receiver, an offensive lineman, or perhaps something different? Let's discuss. Okay, hello and welcome back to Draft Brothers, a Champions Round podcast. We continue our NFL Draft preview series with the Tennessee Titans. I am your host, Jeff Hasley, and I'm joined by my draft brother, Dan Turner. And today's guest is Mike Herndon, a writer and editor for paulkuharski.com, which is a prominent site that focuses on all things Titans. Mike's going to help us understand what the Titans might do in the 2023 NFL Draft. Mike, it's nice to meet you. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And the Titans are, probably not a nationally super interesting team. I think a lot of people forget about them pretty easily. But they have a lot of different ways they could go this offseason. I do think they're one of the more intriguing teams they're kind of at a pivot point in their franchise kind of build here with Rand Carthon coming on.
All right. Well, we are looking forward to you kind of breaking it down for us. Let's get started. Okay, so I guess the big question is, and it's an obvious question, what position, what player do you think Tennessee is going to be targeting here with the 11th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft? We'll start with that.
So the two positions that jump out to me, they need help in a lot of places, but particularly on offense, where they've really had a changing of the guard at a lot of spots here in the last couple of years. The guys that they do have that are kind of established pieces are getting older. You know, Ryan Tannehill's 34, Derrick Henry's about to be 30, and they just moved on from their whole offensive line. So the two spots to me are left tackle, because that's a premium position. That's a premium pick in the draft. That's a good spot to kind of look at taking a left tackle, in my opinion, and particularly for this draft class. And then wide receiver. They basically have Treylon Burks, their 2022 first-round pick, who flashed, didn't stay healthy for most of the season, but did show some promise when he was in there. And then not a whole lot else. They've got a fifth-round pick from last year, and Kyle Phillips would probably be their number 2 if they had to start the season tomorrow, who, again, was not healthy at all last year, barely played. So they desperately need both those positions. They signed Andre Dillard, who could play left tackle for them, but I don't think he's the kind of guy that you sign and then say we don't have a need there anymore. I think if you have a super huge grade on Paris Johnson Jr. or your left tackle of choice, I still think you could go get him there.
Yeah, I was going to talk about Andre Dillard a little bit. Maybe he can swing to right tackle, and maybe left tackle's not quite on the team yet. They in free agency, they made some moves. They got Arden Key, the edge rusher from Jacksonville, probably their biggest move. Sean Murphy Bunting as well. Aziz Al-Shahir kind of to take the place, I assume, of David Long. Mm-hmm. So maybe they do look at wide receiver, or as you said, offensive tackle with the first pick. That kind of leads me to my next question here. Treylon Burks, you mentioned he kind of flashed and he showed some periods of brilliance, but Tennessee is that rushing team, right? That's their dominant force. Is Burks the wide receiver 1 on the team, or is that guy just not yet there on the roster? What do you think about that?
I think Burks will probably be the wide receiver 1 for them next year. Now, whether he's like, I think there's wide receiver 1s and then there's wide receiver 1s, there's two different levels to that. I don't know that Burks is going to be a top 10, 15 receiver anytime soon. I think he's got that potential in him. And I think he showed that. If you go back and watch the Packers game last year with Burks, when he was kind of finally healthy, and the way he played in that game is exactly what they envision with him. So I think he's probably their wide receiver 1 to start the season. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they looked at like a Jackson Smith and Jigba at 11, or even if they trade back slightly to look at wide receiver in that first round to continue to build that, because they traded away AJ Brown famously, and now they just don't have a whole lot there. So to me, Burks is the number 1. Obviously they've been rumored with DeAndre Hopkins. I struggle to see how that makes any sense at all for them, where with the way their roster currently sits and their cap situation and everything else like that. And having just gone down the Julio Jones route, trading for an early 30s kind of fading star receiver. To me, I think Burks is going to have to start the year as the one. They really don't have another alternative that's viable at this point.
Well, Dan, I saw Dan smiling when you mentioned DJ Brown because he's an Eagles fan, and so he appreciates the
you're welcome. You're welcome.
The trade there. So yeah,
we appreciate it, Philly.
a late Christmas card, I'm sure. So would Jackson Smith and Jigba, would he be your top choice at wide receiver if they were to go that route at 11?
For me, he is. And I know a lot of Titans fans have a little bit of hesitation just because of the hamstring issue with Jackson Smith and Jigba last year, costing him a bunch of games. And look, this team, the past 2 seasons have set injury records. 2 seasons ago, they set the record for most players used in a season. I think they used 92 different players in the game as far as on the active roster during the 2021 season. And then in 2022, they lost just huge chunks of the roster, and were playing with, basically off the street guys half the time. So any injury situation with any Titans fan is a very sensitive topic. And there's a lot of people that just think you should only add guys that have never been hurt in their whole life, that have a super clean injury history. I'm not quite to that point. I still think Njigba is the clear wide receiver 1 in this class. I'm not a huge Quentin Johnston guy. The other guys to me there's a lot of small, fast guys. There's Tillman and Johnston, who I think are interesting size, speed kind of guys, but maybe not finished products. Whereas Njigba's kind of the guy to me that has the best chance of hitting the ground running and being a star, volume heavy wide receiver, which is what the Titans need. They need volume, guys that can soak up a lot of volume, be open all the time, be that quarterback, blanket. I think Burks can be a little bit more of a big play guy. I don't think he's that safety blanket. So I think what Njigba does really fits well with what the Titans need at wide receiver.
Yeah, actually, doing this show, we hear a lot about wide receivers, and I get the idea that this draft is good for wide receivers, but not great. You're not going to find that elite type of wide receiver in this class, and it's kind of shaping up that way. It's too bad that Tennessee has this high 11th pick that they couldn't find a generational type of wide receiver, but who knows? That's yet to be determined. All right, we are joined by Mike Herndon of PaulKuharski.com and his Twitter, Mike Herndon NFL. All right, we talk about the Titans. I mean, I can't not talk about Malik Willis, right? Because he's such a polarizing type of player and potential future type of player for you and your team. Is this someone who's going to have the opportunity to kind of showcase his skills and talent this year, or is Tennessee looking for another quarterback in the draft? Are they just going to totally lean on Ryan Tannehill and his I guess sunset of his career, I guess, if we call it that?
That's kind of the big question that really is kind of lingering over everything here right now, because Tannehill is entering the final year of his contract. He has $27 million salary this season that is fully non-guaranteed, which means the Titans could move off of him at any moment. They could extend him to lower his cap hit. There's, a potential that I could see them going there. They could cut him. They could trade him. They could do any number of things. Willis last year obviously started 3 games, appeared in a couple others, was pretty bad. I mean, we all knew he was a little bit of a project coming out of the draft. And when he was selected in the 3rd round, everyone said, okay, you give him the redshirt year under Tannehill and then maybe see what you got in 2023. Well, that didn't exactly go to plan because Tannehill had multiple high ankle sprains throughout the season and just struggled to stay healthy. But when they went to Josh Dobbs and pulled him off the street and put him into the starting lineup, I think it was 8 days after they signed him off of the Lions practice squad. To me, that was a pretty big indicator that we're kind of fed up with the Malik Willis experiment, at least for the time being. Now, Whether they're going to give him, I mean, all obviously they're going to give him this offseason, and he's going to be in camp, and they'll see what he can do. And they would love for him to at least step up and be reliable as a backup. I would be very surprised if they're just going to take the training wheels off and throw him out there to the Wolves as the starter this year. So to me, it's either Tannehill is back or they do go and draft. And there's been a lot of rumors that they have a lot of interest in C.J. Stroud, that they were looking to potentially move up to number one. They were one of the teams that was kind of tied to the Bears by various reports and things like that. So I could see if their preferred quarterback, which by the reports that I've heard and rumblings, kind of in the Titans media sphere, seems to be C.J. Stroud. Like if Stroud was to fall to 3, would they look to make a move up with the Cardinals? I could possibly see that. Because I think they recognize they need a better quarterback than Ryan Tannehill if they're going to win more than what they've won the last 4 years, which is, basically you can go to the AFC Championship game, you can get 1 seed, but you're just not going to be able to get over that hump when you're at that big a talent deficit at quarterback compared to Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and all these other superstars in the AFC, which this conference just sucks to be in if you don't have one of those guys.
Yes.
So I think they recognize that, and whether Willis ends up being that guy or not, they'd love him to be, obviously. But I don't think they're counting on it at this point, and I think it would be a happy surprise if he turned out to be anything more than a backup guy for them.
If you like sports and playing sporting games, download the Champions Round app. Get playing and start winning. And you can use promo code DraftBros for a free $10 and check out our newest game mode, Spicy Slips. If you love live sports gaming, the NBA, or just want some extra action this NFL season, come play Spicy Slips, now with the NCAA tournament. Build a 2 to 5 leg parlay of live props and win big today.
All right, so we know, Derrick Henry has been the guy at running back for Tennessee for seems like forever. So with him getting up there, in age and his contract kind of coming to an end in the next year or so, where do you see the future of running back going for Tennessee? I know you drafted, Hassan Haskins last year in the 4th round, and you got a couple of guys, behind him. Where do you go after what does life look like after Henry?
It'll be interesting because I think that day is coming probably sooner rather than later. There's been a lot of reports about potentially trading him, which you never know how much that's just Rand Carthon's a new GM and he's trying to get a feel for what guys are worth in the market, or if that's just their intention is to move on from him. I personally think Henry's probably got a year or 2 left in him at a pretty high level. I don't know that he'll be ever quite as dominant as he was in the 2019, 2020, 2021 kind of heyday that he had there before that foot injury. But I still think he's a pretty good football player. I don't know that the future is on the roster right now. Haskins to me is very much a Jag. He's fine. He's a 230 pound kind of bigger back, which is what they have tended to prefer. He doesn't have the juice that Henry does. He doesn't have the speed that Henry does. He's a decent pass catcher, actually. He's a pretty good you could put him on the field on 3rd downs, which they did a little bit last year. So I think he's a useful guy to have on the team. They love him on special teams. But I don't know that he's going to be the next guy. In fact, I think if there is a guy on the roster that's the next guy, it's Julius Chestnut, who was an undrafted rookie last season, came in, was really kind of neck and neck with Haskins, who was their 4th round pick for most of preseason. And there was, some debate about whether they would keep which one or both. They ended up keeping both on the roster initially. And then Chestnut went up and down off of the practice squad a couple times, but I think finished the season on the roster. So I think Chestnut probably has more upside as a pure runner. And I could see him being maybe a 1st and 2nd down kind of guy for them as they transition to probably what will likely be more of a running back by committee approach after Henry leaves, because the true bell cow guys are very few and far between, and the likelihood that they just pivot to another one is low, I think.
Yeah. So just a quick follow-up. I know this wasn't on this sheet, but is there, if you were to draft a running back this year, is there one that you think would fit, what the Titans are looking for best?
It's kind of an interesting question because I'm not sure what they're going to be looking for. They've obviously had Henry, which is, kind of the sledgehammer and, not really a pass catcher out of the backfield, but I kind of get the feeling that they might not necessarily want to continue to be this exact same style of offense post Henry. I think Vrabel has largely built this offense around Henry because Henry's their best player. And I think he's leaned into what he's had available to him. I think if he was building from scratch, which they're getting very close to being forced to do on offense, I don't know that he would necessarily build it this way if he was given his choice. So it's certainly an interesting question. They have reportedly been sniffing around Tyjae Spears out of Tulane, which of course would be a huge departure from Henry from a size, speed, kind of build, style, everything makeup. I could see them potentially going a very different route post Henry than what it looks like right now. I mean, I love Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Jahmyr Gibbs would be an interesting fit for any offense, really. I think he could fit pretty much anything. And then guys like Spears, to me, are nice players that I think could probably be a part of a rotation, like Julius Chestnut and Tyjae Spears. To me, you could get by with that.
So one thing that we want to discuss here is just one fast question. It'll be a quick yes or no answer. And I'll start with you here, Mike. And then we'll go to Dan, and then I'll say my answer. Will Ryan Tannehill start more games at quarterback for Tennessee than anyone else on the team this year?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay. Dan? No,
I don't think so.
No, I'm going to say yes. Interesting. We're going to find out a lot of what happens, of course, during the draft. And, you mentioned that Tennessee might be kind of swaying away from this Derrick Henry-led offense. But wouldn't it be interesting, though, if they decided to take Bijan Robinson at 11 and just kind of thought about, what do we do here? Trade Derrick Henry for a package, whatever, and then just kind of build the future. That would be shocking. I could see that happening, but there's so many different scenarios for Robinson and teams this year. It seems like we've talked about it for everybody, right, Dan? To the people that we've talked about.
Yeah, pretty much. Absolutely.
It's definitely possible, but shoot, I don't know.
As a Texas alum, you do not have to talk me into Bijan Robinson. The Titans. I would absolutely love that. I think Bijan is LaDainian Tomlinson reincarnated. That is who I see when I see him play.
Oh, wow.
He is incredible. And to me, and I think the Texas coaches would probably tell you this, if they wanted to play him at wide receiver, he could have easily been a draftable wide receiver. He has that good ball skills as far as a pass catcher, route runner. They lined him up at wide receiver at times at Texas and threw the ball to him on real wide receiver routes, not just these little bubble screens or whatever. He is amazingly talented. He's a great dude too. I think he's going to be a superstar.
Yeah, he seems like a can't miss prospect that can do these multiple type of weapon that you can have on your offense, and there's those players only come around every now and then. So generational type of talent. So yeah, I agree. All right. Well, hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and of course thank you, Mike, for coming on again. He is Mike Herndon at Paul Kuharski is where you can find his work as a writer and editor, and his Twitter handle at Mike Herndon NFL. Thank you everyone for watching and listening. And do us a favor, if you like the show, please give us a like, a comment, a subscribe. That stuff really does help the channel. Stay tuned next time when Draft Brothers will speak and talk about the Green Bay Packers and their draft possibilities. All right. Thank you so much, Mike. And good luck to the Titans, man.
Thanks,
Remember the
Mike.
Titans.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys.